While pretend President McCain was busy dispatching pretend Secretary of Defense Lindsey Graham and pretend Secretary of State Joe Lieberman to Georgia, another member of the pretend pre-cabinet made a surprise appearance last night. Pretend Treasury Secretary Phil Gramm. It was Graham's first appearance with McCain since he supposedly left the campaign July 18th after famously calling America a nation of whiners. You may remember McCain first kept Gramm on, then dropped him as national campaign co-chair 3 days later. Fellow McCain advisor Steve Forbes told CNBC that Gramm is still advising McCain. Why does it matter? Well, like Randy Fineman, Gramm is another lobbyist who has helped shape McCain policies that just happen to be in line with their clients. In Graham's case, defending banks from laws that might help homeowners in the mortgage crisis, a crisis Gramm himself contributed to by deregulating banks. Much like he deregulated energy trading, a move even some Republicans admit let speculators drive up gas prices. Let's bring in MSNBC political analyst Howard Fineman, also the senior Washington correspondent for Newsweek. Good evening, Howard.
Hi, Rachel.
So McCain supposedly bounced Gramm from his campaign. Now Gramm is back openly in less than a month. Graham's policies, Graham's politics aside, what does this process tell us about McCain and his campaign?
Well, I checked with the McCain campaign leadership, and they wanted to stress to me that the event that we're showing video here of is at the Aspen Institute. It wasn't a McCain event. It was an Aspen Institute event. But the fact is, if John McCain had been embarrassed to have Phil Gramm and Wendy Graham sitting in the front row out there at the Aspen Institute, I'm sure the people who run the Aspen Institute would have accommodated the wishes of John McCain and put Phil and Wendy in the back of the tent. They were right there in the front row. So I think the message that John McCain is sending, you know, don't worry, Phil, you're still in my heart and you're still giving me advice. And by the way, we've got a lot of money to raise, a lot of bundling to do between now and Labor Day, so get at it.
As you mentioned, Phil Gramm's wife, Wendy, was also there with him. She's, of course, a key figure in the Enron scandal. And really, both Grahams are exemplars of D.C.'s revolving door, cashing in at big companies while, during, or after holding a political post that helps those big companies cash in. Do you see the Democrats, either Obama specifically or the Democrats generally this election cycle, heading toward a Sherrod Brown-style, Jim Webb-style populism that would give them room to rail against this as a form of corruption?
Well, I think the Democrats are going to try. I think Obama's going to try. I think they've talked a lot. As a matter of fact, the Obama campaign has an ad on now about the contributions that John McCain has received from oil industry sources as John McCain comes out with his drill policy. But it's tricky for the Democrats, and it's tricky for Obama because he's got his bundlers too. They're not precisely the same ones, although there may be some that are the same. And the Obama campaign itself, having foregone public financing for the fall campaign, is increasingly relying on a lot of the big bundlers and contributors of the same stripe as McCain. The question is whether there are as many of these kinds of out-front lobbyists operating as policymakers in the Obama campaign, and frankly, I don't see any quite as out front as people like Phil and Wendy Graham.
That policy-making aspect is, I think, exactly the political key here. I mean, the word lobbyist is supposed to be one of the boring political words that people don't get excited about. But a politician who's bought and paid for, that's still a description that gets an exclamation point from the American people. I mean, the issue here is the policy-making aspect. Graham was writing economic policy for McCain at the same time he was a paid bank lobbyist. Fineman was writing foreign policy for McCain at the same time he was a paid foreign lobbyist. Is it an ethics issue for McCain, this impression that that the agenda of this politician could be bought and paid for rather than just a personnel issue?
Well, it certainly could be. I think McCain would argue, and he does argue, that these are his policies to begin with. But that hasn't always been the case. He's switched some policy positions, and some money has flowed afterwards. Now, what's the causal connection? A lot of people would argue there would be some. What I find fascinating, especially about the foreign policy angle here, Rachel, is that Randy Fineman is out there advocating for the Republic of Georgia, for its interests, for the Democratic government there, for the reformists in Georgia, basically the point of the lance of American policy in Georgia. And it's become very much a part of this campaign. McCain is hardly embarrassed by it. He's proud of it. He views the involvement of his aide in helping to shape American policy in Georgia as an extension of his political campaign here in the United States. And I was at a McCain rally the other day in York, Pennsylvania, where basically McCain was proudly taking credit for being out ahead of the President of the United States in this policy, because McCain thinks it's a way he can outmaneuver Obama and paint Obama as being afraid to use military force and now afraid to confront the Russian bear that has suddenly awakened in the East.
If McCain is going to be touting Schoeneman that way, it's up to the Obama campaign then to pin an $800,000 price tag proudly on Schoeneman's suit.
Well, you can expect them to try.
Yeah, we'll see. Howard Fineman of MSNBC and Newsweek magazine, thanks for joining us. Have a good weekend, Howard.
You too. Thanks, Rachel.